Hello and welcome to Cooking the Books with Heather. Today we're going to be making smothered pork chops in country gravy from Lazarus Lynch's Son of a Southern Chef cookbook. Have it all set up right here. I think all of my ingredients ready. This is pretty simple recipe, and it all comes together in one pan on the stove. So we're gonna have this for dinner. I already have some green beans cooking and some rice to go with it. Very standard Southern thing to serve with a smothered pork chop is some rice to take some of that gravy. I have my cast iron pan heating on medium high. It's getting pretty hot with a little bit of, he says canola oil. I'm using grapeseed oil because that's generally what I use for a neutral vegetable oil. And we're gonna make the dredge for the pork chops. I've got just some all-purpose flour right here. And I'm gonna add, this is thyme. I didn't measure it, but it's fresh thyme, picked from the stem and then roughly chopped. So there's that. He also says a couple of extra sprigs, but I didn't see anywhere in the recipe where he used it, so I didn't bother. But I can always go get some. I grow it in a pot on the deck. I have some garlic powder. And then we have some seasoned salt, and he does suggest such as Lowry's, and that just happened to be what we had. So mine is a little, oops, a little bit clumpy, so I'm gonna try to get some of the clumps out with my fork as I mix this into my flour. So we're mixing this up just so we can dredge our pork chops in it before we fry them. And one second. He says to use a shallow dish, and I had an interesting time finding one that would also fit my large pork chops. So, but before we use this, we're going to take out some of it, about 2 tablespoons, to use as a thickener for our gravy. So there we go. This is starting to smoke a bit. So I'll turn my heat down just a little. I'll probably turn it up when I'm ready to put stuff in here. So we have 4 pork chops, bone in with, he said, 1/2 to 3/4 inch thick. So not super thin, but not super thick either. And I'm going to dredge these in this flour. Your hands are really the best tool for this. And just make sure they get coated. And yes, I make a mess when I do it, but we're making sure it gets all coated. And then shake off as much as you can. And we're gonna put this, I'm gonna turn this heat back up. We're gonna put it in our skillet and we're gonna fry it, he says, for until golden brown on both sides, 4 to 6 minutes. Now, we are not cooking this in the gravy, or just serving the gravy on top of it. So this is the only cooking that these get. So we are gonna try to make sure that they are done, although you do not have to cook pork until it is, a super high temperature and dry. So we'll try not to do that. There we go. I'm only gonna be able to do 2 at once, but I'm gonna go ahead and get my other ones dredged while I wait for those. But we're gonna wait about 4 to 6 minutes before we turn them. So I might turn my heat down just a tad. I don't want to burn them. And burn them on the outside and undercooked on the inside is never a good idea. But if I can get these all dredged, I can wash my hands and then not have to worry about that. So it's been 4 to 5 minutes, and I flipped them in the pan one time, just 180 degrees, because it felt like this one side wasn't getting as much heat. So we're turning them over. They look golden brown and delicious. And we're going to do the same thing on the other side. And we're going to keep going. When this is done, we're just going to put the other two in here. When they look like this pretty much on the other side, I've got a plate that I've kind of heated up a little bit in the microwave, and I usually that's my way to keep things kind of warm while I finish my meal. You can also just put aluminum foil over top to tent it, kind of keep them warm. Like I said, we are not cooking these in the gravy at all. We're just going to serve them like this with gravy on top. So you just want to keep them warm until you're ready to serve. So we're just going to keep cooking our pork chops, and then I'll be back when it's time to make the gravy. My last two pork chops are done, and let me take them out real quick. So, turned off my heat just for a second, but I realized I completely forgot pepper in my dredge, but that's okay. We're gonna try to, we're supposed to wipe out as much of this as we can, but I maybe don't have enough paper towels. One second. So we're just getting most of the oil out of here and any burned bits. That's very hot. And we're gonna just turn it on to medium heat. And I've got some unsalted butter that we're gonna melt here, and we're gonna add some onion. I probably have a little bit more vegetables than he called for, but it'll be okay. These are just sliced. This is bell pepper. I had a red one. He says use whatever color you like. And we're just going to cook these until the vegetables are tender and softened. About 5 minutes, he says. We'll see if they get tender and softened in that time for me. I usually find that I have to cook vegetables a little bit longer than recipes say, but we'll see. Okay, it's been about, 7 minutes. At 5 minutes, I felt like it wasn't quite done, but we are going to cook this some more. So now we add a little bit of salt and pepper to this, and I'm going to add a little extra pepper since I completely forgot to add it to my flour mixture. So I'm going to put a good hit of pepper on this. There we go. And now we also add the leftover, the reserved flour mixture that we made. I'm just going to sprinkle it over top. And we're supposed to whisk this until it sort of forms a paste. Basically get the flour and the butter to make friends. All right. There we go. The flour is all sort of covered in butter, so it doesn't look like just pale, dry flour. And we're going to cook this until it is a deep brown. Let's see what he says. Deep golden brown. About 5 minutes. About 5 more minutes. We'll see what it looks like. Okay, I think it's been about 5 minutes, maybe 4, but my cast iron's not 100% nonstick, and some of the flour is sticking, and it looks nicely golden brown, and I don't want it to burn. So we're gonna move on. And next step is to add some, he says low sodium chicken broth. I've just got what I usually have. And I'm going to pour this in here. And whisk it in because we don't want that flour to lump up. So I'm gonna whisk it in and try to get everything up off of the bottom of the pan. And we're gonna cook this for 2 to 3 minutes until, wait, 2 to 3 minutes? No, we're just gonna stir this for a little bit until we know that we've got the flour all incorporated. And I don't feel any more bits sticking to the bottom. There we go. And now I'm going to stir in just a little bit of heavy cream. Now he says to turn it down to medium-low and let it cook, stirring occasionally until the sauce has thickened to your liking, I assume. And he says 2 to 3 minutes. So 2 to 3 minutes, we'll show you what it looks like. All right, it's been like 1.5 minutes and it's not boiling, not simmering. I'm gonna turn it back up. So I'm gonna turn it back up to medium heat. And then I'm gonna just watch it until it is done to my liking. So then we'll show you. I had to turn mine up quite a bit and boil it for a while before my gravy got to a thickness that I prefer. Now, I know that I like my gravy a little bit on the thick side, but it was gonna take forever to get anywhere near thickened on my stove at a medium-high heat or medium-low heat. So yeah, I turned it up quite a bit. So here's where we are. This is a little still thin for me, but I think it will be fine. As it cools, it thickens a bit. So you never want to go super thick while it's hot, but there we go. I think it actually took more like 10 minutes or so with everything before the gravy was where I wanted it. So that's the end of our smothered pork chops in country gravy, and we'll let you know what it looks like in just a second. Of Cooking the Books with Heather, you watched me make smothered pork chops in country gravy from Lazarus Lynch's Son of a Southern Chef cookbook. This is actually a relatively easy main course dish that you can make sort of in one pot. And it's a very Southern kind of thing, having pork chops with gravy. I don't usually make my pork chops that way, although I'm sure my husband would very much appreciate if I did. It is something he likes. As far as the gravy pork chops with gravy that I've had here, since I don't make them myself that much, the bell pepper is a little bit different. Definitely onion in the gravy, but I'm not as familiar with the bell pepper in the gravy. And it sort of gave it a little bit of a New Orleans Cajun sort of feel to me. I don't think it's particularly like that, but since you always get the bell pepper with the Holy Trinity or whatever they call it in Cajun, you know, which is like onion and bell pepper. What is the third one? Garlic, maybe? I don't remember. It's usually carrot, celery, and onion, but I know that it's bell pepper is part of the Cajun trio. So that kind of gave it a little bit of a Cajun feel to me. My pork chops were really very large for a single serving for us, but they were really delicious and we all very much enjoyed it, and even had a little bit of gravy left over. I would suggest serving this with something like rice where you can put the gravy on it, because that was really delicious. But yeah, it doesn't really require anything special. He does request, say to make this in a cast iron skillet, but you could make it in any large skillet that you have, and it would be perfectly fine. So yeah, if you enjoyed watching me make this, please give me a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and come back and watch me make something else next week.